The family business was on the verge of bankruptcy. I worked day and night, running around for projects, and exhausted all my efforts to turn the situation around. Later, due to overwork and excessive socializing, I got gastric cancer. When I was critically ill, my parents suddenly brought the adopted daughter from the orphanage, who they had sponsored since she was a child to ward off bad luck for me, to my bedside. Sylvia. She grabbed my neck, and a cigarette butt with sparks was pressed against the back of my emaciated hand where the veins were bulging, viciously forcing me to sign the share transfer agreement. Sylvia grabbed my neck, and the cigarette butt with sparks burned on the back of my emaciated hand where the veins were bulging. She viciously forced me to sign the share transfer agreement. Shirley, I'm the real daughter of the Sylvia family. If it weren't for the fortune, teller saying that I needed someone to ward off bad luck for me, could you have had such a good life today? Now that I'm an adult and have avoided the great white tiger misfortune in my life, you can die now. So, it turned out that the lucky star to ward off bad luck in the Sylvia family was not Sylvia, but me. My parents had been beating and scolding me since I was a child, not because they loved me deeply and disciplined me severely, but simply because they resented me for taking the place of their biological daughter. Now that the business had come back to life and Sylvia had reached adulthood, I had no more value to be exploited. They unplugged my ventilator. I was emaciated, vomiting blood, and finally died. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day when Sylvia was brought back by my parents and they demanded to adopt her. Looking at their greedy eyes, I turned around and left with the potential business partner I was about to close a deal with to start my own business. If you think I'll make wedding clothes for you, you're dreaming. 1. The day the company received investment from Party B, I didn't get home until after the social event. My mind was groggy. The moment I pushed open the door, the sound of firecrackers suddenly exploded in my ears. Shirley, welcome home. Today, Mom and Dad have some good news for you. Your sister will be 18 years old in 3 months. To find you a companion, we've decided to bring her home and adopt her. We'll hold a banquet in a while and announce her identity to the public. The familiar words came up again. I squinted my eyes, and my brows twitched violently. They gathered around Sylvia, chatting about various details of the banquet, laughing and talking as if they were a loving family. I had just finished a project that was crucial to the survival of the company. I didn't know how much alcohol I had been forced to drink, and my stomach felt like it was on fire. A sharp pain shot through my head, and a scene suddenly appeared in front of my eyes. I was lying on the hospital bed, dying, but my parents forced me to sign the share transfer agreement by holding my hand. Sylvia burned hideous scars on my body with a hot cigarette butt, and her eyes were filled with madness. Shirley, I'm the real daughter of the Sylvia family. If it weren't for the fortune teller saying that I needed someone to ward off bad luck for me, could you have had such a good life today? Now that I'm an adult and have avoided the great white tiger misfortune in my life, you can die now. In the end, they unplugged my ventilator. I gasped for breath, but still couldn't escape the end of vomiting blood and suffocating to death. Mom and Dad, didn't you say that Sylvia was just a tool to ward off bad luck for me? Now that the company has just come back to life and everything is still not stable, isn't it inappropriate to bring her back? I crossed my arms and sat on the sofa, observing the every move of the three of them. My parents didn't expect that I, who had always been obedient, would oppose. Their expressions changed immediately. The two of them said in unison, Shirley, how can you talk about your sister Sylvia like that? She went to the orphanage for you. Now that she's almost an adult, this is the best time to announce her identity. I sneered. They were in such a hurry to bring her into the house to take over my power and seize the family property while the company was just stabilizing. Sylvia had red, rimmed eyes, slender fingers, a rosy complexion, and fair skin. She was clearly brought up in a life of luxury. Since I was 3 years old and had memories, my memories of my parents were nothing but endless beatings and scoldings. If I didn't get a full score in the exam, I would be punished to kneel in the corner for 3 hours, and I got rheumatism. When I didn't choose the financial management major they preferred in college, I was directly transferred to that major by force and punished by being locked at home without food or drink. Even if any of the company's projects failed, I would be slapped in public and labeled as incompetent in management. I used to naively think that this was because they loved me deeply and disciplined me severely, and I desperately tried to meet their high demands. But when I saw Sylvia being doted on and almost taken to travel around the world every 3 days, while I was left to grow up in a boarding school since I was a child, I suddenly realized. So, what they said about Sylvia being raised in luxury to ward off bad luck for me was all a lie. A real parent would never be willing to let their child get drunk every day for work-related socializing. My existence was just to make wedding clothes for their family. What if I say I don't agree? There was still a glimmer of hope in my heart, hoping that the scene that had just emerged in my mind was all illusory. But a crisp and loud slap completely woke me up from the beautiful dream of family harmony. My father slapped me and then angrily started smoking. My mother twisted my ear, her tone shrill. "Shirley, I think you've become too cocky. Do you think you're qualified to meddle in my affairs? Your father and I aren't dead yet. You don't get to decide in the Sylvia family. Sylvia will be your real sister from now on. You'd better keep that in mind. Do you hear me?" A sharp pain shot straight to my heart. Sylvia pretended to comfort me, but I saw her secretly laughing. I heard the sound of my heart breaking along with my weak breath. "Fine. I'll definitely treat Sylvia as my dear sister." My ear was suddenly let go, and I lost my balance and fell to the ground. The teacups on the table crashed down beside my feet. The fragments scratched the corner of my eye. My gradually blurring vision, it was the backs of Sylvia, supporting my parents, leaving triumphantly. Tears streamed down my face. I clenched my fists tightly and secretly made up my mind. Don't you want to squeeze out my last remaining value in the Sylvia family? This time, I'll never let you get what you want. 2. Their love for Sylvia exceeded my imagination. The day after the company's stock price was announced to be rising slowly, they immediately brought her large and small bags into the mansion. Brand name suitcases were neatly stacked in the middle of the living room. The servants held their breath and respectfully called Sylvia by her new title, Miss Shirley. My parents nodded in satisfaction, each taking one of her arms, calling her darling affectionately. When I walked out of the room with a cup of coffee, I happened to meet her triumphant gaze. "Sister," she said sweetly. I frowned slightly, almost imperceptibly, and felt a bit nauseous. Then, I unceremoniously asked someone to bring a trash can and vomited violently in front of her. Her face turned green and then white, getting uglier and uglier. My father rushed forward and started cursing at me. "Shirley, how are you being a sister? What do you mean by vomiting in front of your sister? If you keep acting like this, get out of here." My mother stroked Sylvia's head and comforted her softly. The three of them stood on the opposite side of me, looking incredibly harmonious. Although I had already decided not to have any more expectations of them, my heart still couldn't help but ache when I saw that hostile look. I cleared my throat with difficulty and said hoarsely, "Dad, I just secured the project that saved the company last night. I'm still suffering from a hangover. I didn't do it on purpose." He stammered for a moment, but still spoke for Sylvia. "You still can't talk to your sister like that. Apologize to her." "Humph, no matter how much I sacrificed for the Sylvia family, they would always think it was only right." "Ungrateful wretches." I replied with an "oh," and nodded indifferently towards the three of them. "Sorry." Perhaps enraged by my contemptuous attitude, as I was about to turn and leave, Sylvia, who had always been playing the role of a well-behaved and obedient girl, suddenly said, "Sister, an apology should be sincere, right? I've just entered the Sylvia family and I don't have a place to live. I heard that your room has good ventilation from both north and south. Let me live there." It was only her first day in the Sylvia family, and she was so brazen as to want to take my room. My parents echoed her words immediately, even scolding me for being selfish and saying I should learn to be more accommodating to my sister. Her milky white skin looked even more delicate under the illumination of the crystal chandelier. I smiled, walked forward, and kept apologizing. As I walked towards her, I pretended to trip, and the hot coffee splashed directly onto the large area of her exposed skin. Sylvia immediately let out a scream and stepped back continuously, but the splashed area was already red and swollen. "I'm so sorry, sister. I was dizzy and couldn't stand steadily for a moment. Please don't be angry with me, sister. Well, you can have my room. The company's accounts are pressing, and I won't be coming back for a while." My servile appearance pleased the three of them, and my parents' endless curses finally stopped. Watching her enter the room surrounded by my parents, with her haughty look, I couldn't help but snort coldly in my heart. "Sylvia, my room may have good ventilation, but it's dark, damp, and full of invisible midges. I chose the seemingly largest room so that my parents could live comfortably. Let's see how many days you can endure the bites of the midges." 3. The company's accounts are still in a mess, but I've already lost the passion I had in my previous life. I put aside my current affairs and first went to the hospital for a full body physical examination. The doctor told me that due to years of heavy drinking and an irregular diet, I had a stomach problem. As long as I took good care of myself, I would recover within a year. I held the physical examination report with a bit of relief. Fortunately, I didn't have gastric cancer yet, and there was still time to take good care of my body. Before I could return to the office, I saw Sylvia, my parents, and a large group of people coming towards me in a bustling manner. In order to take away the shares in my hands as soon as possible, they came to the company without even a word of notice. Everyone was holding a large-sized champagne. They directly started a party in the company. In front of many investment company presidents, they announced proudly that Sylvia was the adopted daughter of the Sylvia family and would enjoy the same treatment as me. The power of me, the company's president, was undermined by their words, and I lost half of my power. From now on, all of our shares will be given to Sylvia. To make up for her losses over the years, Shirley, let your sister get more involved in the company's affairs. You don't have to overwork yourself either. They didn't let her come when the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, but now that the crisis has passed, they want her to reap the benefits. Back then, in order to have the right to speak when negotiating with various investors, I carried out various financing and acquisitions and held 35% of the shares. Even during the most critical times, my parents never thought of giving me the shares in their hands. As soon as Sylvia came, they gave them away without hesitation. As a result, the shares in her hands actually reached 40%, 5 percentage points more than mine. She pretended to decline and said modestly, "Mom and Dad, don't do this. My sister has dedicated herself to the company. I've just come and don't understand anything yet. I still need my sister to teach me about the unfamiliar parts." "Sylvia, you're so smart. You've been getting the first place every year. You're much better than Shirley back then. Mom and Dad believe you can do it." They belittled me to nothing in front of everyone. The employees kept their eyes down, looking at their noses and then at their hearts, remaining silent. Even the investors looked at each other and started whispering. I noticed the red dots on Sylvia's hand shrewdly and understood what was going on. I put on a relaxed smile and shrugged. "Of course. Now that your shares have exceeded mine, you should take over these company affairs. If I keep holding on to them, I'm afraid Mom and Dad will think I'm deliberately bullying you. So, you can take the position of president. I'm a bit tired too. It's good to take a break." In my previous life, in order to please my parents, Sylvia often skipped school, had relationships, and went around playing. But she spent a large amount of money to bribe teachers and classmates to lie for her. She even bought a fake overseas master's degree, making them think their biological daughter was really that capable. If I hadn't tried my best to persuade them not to let her get involved in the company's affairs, the company would have gone bankrupt and been liquidated long ago. However, this time, since they want it, I might as well give up my power. It also saves me the trouble of the share grabbing. Relieved of my duties, I felt light-hearted. Just as I stepped out of the company gate, I received a phone call. Chapter 2. A man's anxious voice came from the other end of the phone. Shirley, are you crazy? Why did you transfer the company's management rights to Sylvia? Have you considered me, your fiancé? 4. When Leo came to me in a huff, I was wearing an apron and cooking soup. The pot was still bubbling on the marble countertop, and the aroma of tremella filled the whole room. He pushed the door open and started roaring at me. Shirley, who gave you permission to step down as president? Have you considered me? Looking at his distorted facial features, I waved my hand impatiently. I stepped down, and I didn't like those things anyway. He got anxious and blurted out the truth. Shirley, what makes you think you're qualified to marry into our Leo family? If it weren't for the fact that you're the only daughter of the Sylvia family, would our military, political family take a fancy to you? In my previous life, when I was critically ill, Leo never visited me, his nominal fiancé. Instead, he frequently appeared on TV. He showed up with Sylvia, making the public think they were a couple. After my death, he directly married Sylvia, bringing the two families even closer. An ungrateful scoundrel. I twitched the corner of my mouth and changed the topic. Leo, how can you say that? Sylvia is my sister. Mom, Dad, and I all like her. I've decided to transfer all my shares to her in the future. Then I'll marry you and be a housewife. I'll never be so busy with company affairs that I don't even have time to date you. How about it? Aren't you happy? He had criticized me many times before for being too busy with company affairs and having little time to spend with him. Now, when he heard that I decided to give up everything, he was actually dissatisfied. They want me to make money and also provide emotional value. They are so inconsistent, being extremely double standard. After hearing that I was going to give all my shares to Sylvia, his eyes began to waver. He didn't directly respond to my proposal, just left with a "we'll talk about it later" and left in a hurry. I knew that for the sake of money, he would definitely try to get close to Sylvia. And Sylvia, who always wants to outdo me, will surely accept his advances. You know, the people in the Leo family are all shrewd old foxes. Without my support, the investors in the company will naturally leave one after another. The sweet tremella and Sydney soup is incredibly delicious. I took a satisfied sip, feeling warm in my stomach. I'm looking forward to their next moves. 5. After I left, I immediately registered a small company. I first informed the close and reliable investors, and they quietly transferred the subsequent funds to me. The employees of the original company also gradually jumped ship and followed me. There's no other reason. Sylvia is a complete idiot when it comes to company management. And she doesn't dare to tell her parents that she's all bark and no bite. She just knows how to hang out with Leo all day, chatting and falling in love. The Leo family, with its military, political family background, only has a fancy name but not enough funds. They've reaped a lot of benefits from the relationship between the two. The people on the board of directors were just nominal in the original company. In fact, they all came to me. The capital flow soon broke, and the company's salary arrears issue reached the Administration for Industry and Commerce. Mom and Dad came to me for help with Sylvia. Shirley, quickly sell the 35% of the shares in your hand to pay off Sylvia's debt. Otherwise, those loan sharks won't let her go. That stupid Sylvia borrowed usury from the underworld to cover the deficit. By the time Mom and Dad found out, the principal and interest had rolled up to 100 million. They sold all the shares in their hands, but it wasn't enough, so they set their sights on me. I was in casual clothes, still holding 2 boxes of medicine I had just picked up from the hospital. No way. The company was built up by me, and I hold the original shares. If I sell them now, the company will be gone forever. My mother shouted, "Are you going to watch your sister die? You cold-blooded and selfish person. I should never have adopted you in the first place." Chapter 3. Adopted? What do you mean? Sylvia was just taken into the Sylvia family as a tool to ward off bad luck for me. Did you say something wrong? Looking at my deliberately confused and innocent appearance, Sylvia became even more complacent, and her voice suddenly rose. Surely, you don't know, do you? I'm the biological daughter of Mom and Dad. The fortune teller said I had a great white tiger misfortune before I turned 18. They took you out of the orphanage and adopted you for my sake. You're the tool. So hand over the shares obediently now and save us the trouble of talking. This is all you should do. I staggered back, my eyes falling on the camera hidden behind the TV. After making sure it could capture the whole scene completely, I started crying hysterically, shaking my head nonstop, muttering to myself. It's impossible, impossible. What you said isn't true. I'm the daughter of Mom and Dad. You're lying to me. I don't believe it. Ha ha ha, you fool. Mom and Dad have cared about me since I was a child. Even when they put me in the orphanage, they came to accompany me every day. And you just deserve to drink yourself into gastric bleeding for the company, being beaten and scolded at will because you're a born wretch. A poor thing that no one wants. You still don't know, do you? Your fiancé Leo has long been impatient with you. He's already with me. When the company's capital flow recovers, we'll hold the grandest wedding in Beijing. And you will become a useless outcast, with nothing. Sylvia laughed maniacally, pointing at me with her hand. Catch her and press her fingerprint directly. My parents immediately rushed forward and drew up a contract of gratuitous transfer using the identity information they had previously obtained from me. As long as I pressed my fingerprint, it would take effect. I struggled left and right, punched my father in the back of the head, and slapped my mother on the left cheek. Both of them were kicked to the ground by me. Sylvia, who had been hiding behind them, rushed forward like crazy when she saw this. She took out a dagger shining with cold light and stabbed at me. I dodged to the side. When she wasn't paying attention, I sprinkled the powder on her back, then grabbed her neck, watching her flushed face gradually turn purple like a pig's liver. My eyes were cold, and I showed a sinister smile. Sylvia, your good days are yet to come. Then I flung my hand, and she was thrown straight to the counter. The just-boiled thermos bottle fell down with a bang. The boiling water poured down on her head. Sylvia curled up on the ground, covering her face and screaming non-stop, still cursing me with venomous words. Accompanied by her screams, the signal sound indicating that the camera's memory was about to be full also rang. I let out a long breath. I picked up the phone and dialed a number. Hello, is this 110? I want to report an incident. Some strangers have broken into my house. 6. At the police station, the three of them, with bruised faces, were shouting hoarsely that they were related to me. Not strangers. But when I showed them the severance of relationship document they had tricked me into signing long ago, they all fell silent. My mother had a face as thick as a city wall. Even at the police station, she still thought it was all my fault. So what? Anyway, we gave you food and shelter before, isn't that enough? You actually sent Mom, Dad, and your sister to the police station. Do you know what filial piety is? All those years of studying have gone to waste. Sylvia immediately stood on the moral high ground, scolding me for being too much. The hideous burned scar on her face was still steaming. She clenched her fists, her eyes bursting with murderous anger. There was no ripple in my eyes. I blinked and said, if you want to leave, beg me. If you beg me, maybe I'll let you go. My father's eyes widened. He rushed over, rolled up his sleeves, and wanted to hit me, just like when I was a child. But the police pulled him away forcefully. I heard his roaring shout. You unfilial daughter. You even want to send me to jail. I should have strangled you when you were born. The fist he swung didn't even touch the corner of my clothes before he was stunned by the police with an electric baton. He fell to the ground with a thud, like a dead pig. My mother covered her mouth and stepped back in fear. Sylvia gasped, knelt down with a thud, and grabbed my trouser leg, pleading pitifully. Sister, please, please don't let us go to jail. We'll die if we go to jail. Tears and snot smeared all over her face. She kept kowtowing on the ground, and the blood on her forehead flowed down her nose and all the way to the corner of her mouth. I withdrew my leg in disgust. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the red dots on her body getting more and more serious. Pretending to look embarrassed, I apologized to the police and let the three of them go. When they left, their eyes were wide with anger, and the pitiful and pleading look just now disappeared completely. Shirley, you wait. I'll make you pay. Just you wait. Soon, their revenge came. Chapter 4:7 A hot topic on the internet, adopted daughter ungrateful, colludes with investors to drive biological family to death, trying to empty family fortune, set the internet on fire. Words like adopted daughter, ungrateful, investors, and emptying family fortune were all stimulating the nerves of the audience. Under the accusation of online public opinion, I changed from the original biological daughter to the adopted daughter, and Sylvia was their biological daughter. My normal business cooperation with investors was speculated as getting ahead through sleeping with them, and the cyberviolence became more and more serious. Leo, Sylvia's parents, and Sylvia were all tearful in front of the camera, saying how much kindness they had shown me in the past. On TV, Sylvia's parents were wiping their noses in tears, telling how hard it had been to raise me over the years. At that time, she was only as small as a soybean. Her mother and I felt so sorry for this lonely little child that we adopted her. But who knew she would turn against us and try to empty the property of our Sylvia family. Poor my biological daughter, Sylvia, had to endure hardships at a young age. Sigh, it doesn't matter if we parents endure hardships, but the child is innocent. They hugged Sylvia and cried together, finding the right angle for the camera, and the glistening teardrops were just captured. Even the host couldn't help wiping away tears. Sylvia played the victim in front of the camera and said, "Grievance, sister, I don't actually blame you. Everyone makes mistakes. It would be good if you can turn back from the wrong path." Holding the remote control, I watched the person on TV scratching her back from time to time. I counted the days on my fingers and then took the initiative to go to the alley where I met hooligans in my previous life. At that time, Sylvia appeared and saved me, and that's how she won my trust. This time, she wanted to use the same trick, but the hooligan was replaced by Leo. Before he could touch me with the knife, Sylvia rushed in front of me and spread her arms to protect me. If I hadn't known her tricks in advance, I'm afraid I would have been as deeply moved as in my previous life. "Stop. I won't allow you to bully my sister." Leo pretended and said, "You treat her, Shirley, as your sister, but she doesn't treat you as a sister. Get out of the way. I'm going to kill this ungrateful wretch today." He rushed up and was about to stab me. Sylvia originally thought of bumping into him and pretending to knock him away to finish the act. I quietly moved to the side, reversed my wrist, and gave a push. Her shoulder hit the knife exactly, bleeding profusely, and she was in so much pain that she couldn't speak. I immediately cried out, kept pressing on her wound, and at the same time threatened the dumbfounded Leo. "Leo, you actually killed someone. I'm telling you, although your Leo family is a military political family, you still have to abide by the law. I'll call the police and send you to jail. I'll make you lose everything and be ruined." He was completely stunned. Because according to the original plan, Sylvia wouldn't get hurt, and this was just a self-inflicted injury trick. Now that I didn't fall for it, all their plans failed. To escape responsibility, Leo cried bitterly at the police station and confessed everything. It was Sylvia. She told me to do this. She said that as long as we used the self-inflicted injury trick, Shirley would be stupidly moved and then hand over the shares of the Sylvia family. It was all her conspiracy. 8. The online public opinion reversed again. I posted the video of Sylvia and her parents forcing me to transfer shares on the internet, and also hired several influential marketing accounts to retell everything they had done. The netizens who had been watching from the sidelines jumped out one after another, saying that I was the one who had suffered the most. Oh my God, I never thought that Shirley had been the daughter of the Sylvia family for more than 10 years and saved the Sylvia family several times from danger. But then Sylvia came out and reaped the benefits. So pitiful. An orphan was used by the Sylvia family to ward off disasters. Is the life of the Sylvia family's daughter a life, and is Shirley's life, which no one cares about, not a life? Sylvia is a complete idiot who messed up the Sylvia family. I was working well in their company but was suddenly fired. I think her company deserves to go bankrupt. Comments flooded Weibo, and I became a pitiful figure in the eyes of the public. Taking advantage of this momentum, I bought a lot of shares thrown by the original directors of the Sylvia family. The people who had been chasing Sylvia for the usury suddenly sent me a message saying they couldn't find her. The person who connected with her for the loan was arranged by me on purpose. Now she disappeared out of thin air. I curled my lips and flipped to the latest hot topic. Sylvia commits suicide came into view. Chapter 5. Her Weibo account posted a very long essay, telling the story of her growing up in an orphanage. She described herself as an innocent little flower, saying that all the things about warding off disasters were arranged by her parents, and she knew nothing about it. The last sentence, "I made mistakes but I will atone for my sins with my death," made many netizens burst into tears, and they completely forgot about all the bad things she had done. They began to feel sorry that such a young and beautiful woman had passed away. The trolls bought by Sylvia's parents tried to pin the blame of her suicide on me, but no one cared. Because fundamentally, I didn't directly harm her. Everyone participates in cyberviolence, and the law doesn't punish the multitude. No one wants to admit they are wrong. What's more, they are just netizens behind the screen. For a long time, the Sylvia family occupied the front page of entertainment news. Until the day I was about to completely annex the Sylvia family and hold a celebration banquet, an untimely text message came. "Shirley, do you want to know who your biological parents are? If you want to know, come to the wholesale dock at 10 p.m. alone. If there are other people, you'll never know the whereabouts of your biological parents until you die." 9. I knew this must be a trick by Sylvia's parents in collusion with the Leo family. Because Leo was sentenced and had a stain on his political record, they would never let me go. But they wouldn't confront me openly. Instead, they secretly helped Sylvia set up a lot of obstacles for me. I put on a bulletproof vest in the most discreet place. When I arrived at the appointed time, it was pitch dark all around, only the howling wind and the roaring waves were making noise. At the dock, I saw Sylvia with lupus erythematosus all over her face wearing white clothes, and her face was full of scratched bloodstains. Red spots also appeared on the faces of Sylvia's parents who were with her. They walked towards me slowly with fierce eyes. "I really didn't expect, Shirley, that you would empty all the cash flow of the Sylvia family. Even the employees have all jumped ship, leaving the company an empty shell. And you set up your own business? All the investors followed you. Even Leo later said he regretted being with me." Sylvia shouted at me crazily. The capillaries on her face burst due to excessive excitement, and blood gushed out. I frowned and covered my nose and mouth. It seemed that the mites and the powder had taken effect. She probably didn't have many days left. "Sylvia, you deserve it. You've always wanted to replace me and even tried to kill me several times." I was just protecting myself. I took a step back, my voice as cold as ice. V.